Hello and welcome to JavaScript Marathon Training presented by This.Labs. I'm Sarah with This.Labs and I will be your host. Our next session is Intro to Tailwind CSS. Today's trainer is Hunter Miller, Senior Software Engineer at This. Welcome, Hunter.
Hey, glad to be here.
You can find Hunter on Twitter using the handle shown at the bottom of the screen. Please don't hesitate to get in touch if you have any questions or feedback. JavaScript Marathon would not be possible without our sponsors. Our sponsor today is This.Labs, your partners in modern digital transformation. We specialize in mentorship, consulting, training, and staff augmentation for enterprise organizations. Find out more at this.labs.com or send us an email at hi@this.co. This.Labs offers personalized training programs to suit your organizational needs, ensuring you and your company stay on the leading edge. If you find keeping up with constantly evolving technologies a struggle and want to bring your team up to speed on one of the latest technologies, contact us today at hi@this.co to set up your complimentary needs assessment. We have a ton of upcoming events for 2021. Next week is State of You Community on the 28th. More details at this.co. And next, JavaScript Marathon is coming back on March 24th. Follow us on This.Labs on Twitter for more information. And with that, I will hand it on over to Hunter.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. I am talking about Tailwind CSS today, which makes me super excited. It's one of my favorite technologies right now on the web. And so, like Sarah said, my name is Hunter Miller. I'm a senior software engineer at This. All right, so let's get into it. What is Tailwind? Tailwind is just CSS. And what that means is that when you're writing Tailwind, you're just writing regular CSS. You're adding classes to HTML because it's a utility CSS framework. And the way that works is it's like a layer on top of your regular CSS. And so they use something called post CSS, which like transforms some things in your CSS to the classes. And all of the classes are built from config. And we'll talk more about like what utility CSS is in a second. And Tailwind's also a design system. So like if you think about what that means, a design system is kind of a set of standard values, whether it's like colors or spacing or specific font families. And so if you mash all that together, you can kind of make a design system. And in this case, it's a design system implemented through utility CSS. So you get a standard set of classes and you can use those to kind of create whatever designs you want by combining different classes. And finally, this is what Tailwind looks like. So you have just a regular class attribute and you add classes as you're trying to style stuff. So what Tailwind isn't? It's not magic. So, you know, some people think frameworks are magic. They're not. It's not the solution to all your problems. It's not going to take care of your kids or your dog or anything like that. It's not the solution for every CSS project. There's a lot of reasons why you might not want to use Tailwind. Whether your team just doesn't want to do utility CSS, that style, or not everybody's familiar with it, or it might take too long to refactor everything. So yeah, it's also not the only way to do CSS. I think there's been some kind of hot takes on Twitter lately about Tailwind, too many people espousing that Tailwind's the only way to do CSS, and it really isn't. There's so many different frameworks and systems and methods of doing CSS, and this is just one of them. And it's not only for tech bros, whatever that means. Tailwind's for everybody. I think they're trying to be more and more inclusive as time goes on. So what's utility CSS? Utility CSS is a way of building your CSS so that each class is very focused on doing one thing. So for the most part, like you see with this flex class, it's just a single CSS property with a particular value. So here we're just saying if you apply flex as a class, then you're going to get display flex. And then similarly, in the case of this py-4, it's applying, vertical padding of one rim to both sides. So utility CSS is a way of doing CSS in that everything stays at the same kind of level of specificity. So a lot of times, if you're just writing normal CSS, if you're writing a selector and you keep tacking on classes like nested or even IDs and things like that, you start to get these really long selectors. And what that means is they have a really high specificity. So, if you have a couple classes and an ID, then you might have like 120 worth of specificity. There's like a point system if you are into it. But anyway, utility CSS avoids that, because what happens when you make a selector like that is that, you put that in, and then now somebody wants to override that with like, they want most of the same styles, but maybe just tweak this other value. Well, now they have to put a selector of the same specificity, and then they have to tack on either something else or add like important, or any of these like things that you've probably seen a bunch of times if you've been doing CSS for a long time. So the way utility CSS avoids this is that everything is at the same specificity level, and that's just a single class worth. And on top of that, all of your utilities are the last CSS to come in, so that they always can win over whatever's before it. Like if you have a class for a component, which we can see here. So in Tailwind, they suggest composing something like a button where you might have like 8 different classes that you're using everywhere for every button, which is just a nightmare to kind of copy and paste around. That's kind of the whole point of CSS. So you would take all of the classes that you may want to use and you apply them with this @apply. And so post CSS is going to look at that and then convert it into normal CSS properties. And in this case, we would take these kind of component classes, or kind of like whatever you want to call them, and we would make sure those come before our utility classes. And so now anytime you need to have a variant of this button, all you have to do is just tack on kind of some extra classes to override whatever you're trying to override. And there's no specificity war. There's no, important or anything like that. But I think most of us are probably, well, hopefully on, some of the more component-based systems, which is just a lot nicer to use. And so if you have components, then there's no need to, or very little need to use @apply. You may use it for some extra things, which we'll look at later. But for the most part, you can just apply these classes to the class attribute, and you just use your component, and it just works. So what is a Tailwind class like, anatomically? So first there's like the core part of it, which is like, in this case, text-red. So Tailwind has their own kind of naming system, which is probably the hardest part to learn. It's pretty easy to pick up once you start using it enough. You can kind of keep the docs open and search for like whatever property you're trying to use. And they have a great set of docs, which we'll look at briefly. But yeah, so in this case, text-red is setting color to red. And just on one last note on naming, Adam, who created Tailwind, and his team along with like people on Twitter and the GitHub issues and everything have like gone painstakingly, hours and hours back and forth, even on his podcast, kind of debating what is the best class name for some things. And recently they changed a couple, but for the most part, they've stayed stable, but they're named specific things for a reason. So this is kind of the core, and this is the breadth of like what you'll normally use, but there are other things. So in case you want to use something like hover or focus or active and all the different a lot of the pseudo selectors, you would use what's called a variant in Tailwind. And so variants are just tacked onto the front with a colon, and those allow you to set hover states straight from HTML, which is crazy. It's so powerful. And then finally, breakpoints. So I would say the other like huge power win is just being able to tack on a breakpoint at the beginning of a class gives you so much like of a speed up when you're trying to tweak responsive styles for every little, part of the journey from mobile to, extra large or whatever. And I think anyone who's done at least a little bit of design work or who's used to doing like pixel perfect designs will know how nice this is, because you don't have to keep going and making new media queries in all the classes that you make. It's just already provided for you, which is awesome. And with that, let's dive in. I made a skeleton Twitter clone, and we're going to try to style as much as we can, and I'll try to talk our way through it as we go. And so right before we do that, let's just talk about kind of the setup. So I'm on Tailwind docs right here under installation, and they have a couple other guides, but this is kind of the generic one. So you just need a few dependencies for Tailwind CSS, post CSS, auto prefixer, and you need to have Tailwind as a post CSS plugin. They show you the config here. There's actually a way to do it when you init your Tailwind config. So every Tailwind instance has a config, and that's what this is right here. And I'll show you mine in a second. But basically, if you add -p, it'll generate your post CSS config as well. And most modern kind of build systems will handle the post CSS automatically. There are some where you have to tweak a few things, whether it's your Webpack config or other things. But today we're using Vue with Vite, and it just kind of worked automatically. So hopefully that's your case as well. So yeah, that's kind of the setup. So let's get going with the code. So here is my Tailwind config. So you can see there's a little bit extra from what we saw earlier, but first thing is purge. So any classes that you want to be kept. So, that's probably, anything that you're typing out, you want to be kept. So you need to tell Tailwind where to find those classes to keep them, because Tailwind generates like 3 megabytes worth of CSS by default, which obviously you don't need all of that on your site. And I find that purge Tailwind builds are actually like super tiny compared to most people's, unpurged CSS. So anyway, so you have the purge. We're telling it to search for view files, JS, TS, JSX, TSX, and the index.html. The next piece is dark mode. So they added this recently. You can set dark mode either with a class or with a media query. So based on the system preferences, the media query would just show dark mode. Otherwise, you can set dark mode with just the dark class, and it'll apply to any child elements. The main piece of this is kind of the theme. So here you can see I am completely replacing font family. If I just wanted to like extend it, I would actually put it under extend like I'm doing with colors. But here I'm just replacing all of the font families with just sans. and we're using inter. And then as far as colors go, like I just wanted to replace the gray with a warm gray. So here I'm saying, you know, extend the colors kind of property, and they give you in the docs like a guide of which properties you need to put here if you want to replace things or extend them. My mouse just went out. There we go. So anyway, here I'm saying instead of the regular gray that comes by default, let's use the warm gray. And actually, I'm going to show you their colors because they're really nice. So the newest Tailwind 2.0 ships with like 22 colors, 5 of which are grays. So you can kind of see just like you start to see what like a lot of the value of what Tailwind brings. It's like you're getting 10 grays, you know, for each kind of gray. So like 50 through 90. And this should cover like almost all of your like theming and design needs. So not only that, but you're getting, let's see, that's 5. So there's 17 colors, you know, 2 different like yellows, like a ton of greens. So yeah, there's just like a lot of thought that went into all of this, and it's really nice out of the box, and you can always like customize it, which is like the best part. I hate being in a system where like you can't customize something to your needs and you're like stuck. So you have to hack around it. Tailwind's built with like customization in mind. So anyway, let's go through the rest of it. So variants, that would be kind of like the hover and focus. There's a default set of variants that ships with all the properties, but you can add, you know, whatever you want, or you can take some out. You know, like you may not need hover for like width or something like that. So you can take those out, or you can just let it be purged. For the most part, I find that does what you need. For the most part, I just find myself adding some variants. And then finally, you have plugins. So Tailwind's got Forms plugin, which I just recently added, which gives you like a lot more control around styling form elements and like checkboxes and things like that. And they also have a typography plugin, which lets you just add like a class to like a body of content, and it'll give you like some nice defaults for your headers and all that kind of stuff. So you can see like over here, we have a post CSS config that it added for us. And so these are really what you need to get going with Tailwind. So let's look at, before we jump into the code, let's look at this Twitter clone. So this is almost completely unstyled. You can see like it's not default browser styles because Tailwind does ship with a CSS reset of its own kind of doing. They have their own defaults there. And I did add a few pieces like for the beginning of this layout to get us columns, and we can go over that. But yeah, so we're just going to be styling this up, doing some buttons and things like that. So let's jump in. So you can see kind of the main app, and I can squinch some of this. So we have like a side nav, and then the tweet box, and a list of tweets, and a sidebar with like the trending stuff. But first, I think we should do the buttons. So I'm going to drag over, because just to show y'all, like I'm working off of a screenshot of Twitter. So they have these like really round, like pill-shaped buttons. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have this button here. I'm just going to add class, and I'm using like the Tailwind extension for VS Code, so you can see what that'll look like. So I'm going to say inline flex. So it's going to be flex inline display, and then you can see here like item center is align item center, and we'll do justify center as well. So that's justify content center. And then let's give it a background. let's do red. I don't know. I've been digging like red and gray. So we'll do red, and then we'll say hover. I don't know. We'll go lighter, maybe 400. And we need the roundedness. So let's do rounded full. So that's border radius. And it looks like, let me come back here. I like to do my properties in a very specific order. It looks like the font weight's bold, so let's do font bold. And color. So text, we'll go with like gray 500. I don't know. No, let's do white. Okay, let's just see what this looks like. Okay, so we're getting there. So we need some padding for sure. The text, it's bigger than what they have, but we'll just leave it. That might be it though. I think that might not be all we need is padding. So let's add some padding. Start with 6, and actually let's just do 6 all the way around. So the padding works with like X and Y. So like X is horizontal, Y is vertical. You can do like T for just top, or B, R, L, etc. But if you just leave nothing, then that's all the way around. So if we do that, something that is absolutely too much. Okay, let's pull that back a little bit. That's a little better, but it's still kind of too much. I think we need to do separate values. So we'll do px3 and py2. Hey, there we go. That looks familiar. So yeah, that's our like button style, at least for now. So let's clean up the sidebar. I think that's a good place to start, or side nav, sorry. So we have these nav items, and then our tweet button. Twitter likes to do their tweet button as like a full width. So let's give it flex. And actually, I think, let's try this. I can never remember if it's full or 100. There we go. Okay. I think their sidebars would be a little smaller. So let's fix that. Let's go back to our app and look at this layout. So we have grid, which is like a CSS grid, and we have 12 columns, and we've got a gap of 6 with one rim of padding around the whole thing. So I think what we want to do is say we need like a max width. And if you have the extension, it triggers off of the space. So sometimes that can trip you up. Here we go. You can see, I think this is going to be too small. Yeah. Well, I don't know. That's actually not horrible. Normally that's actually one of the ones I add the most of is I always add like max width 7, 8, and 9 XL just for like containers and stuff. But this is okay, I think, for now, for what we're doing, just for time. And we also need to center it. So we can do MX for margin and then auto. So there we go. We're getting closer. Okay. So now our tweet button's not quite so offensive. Let's see. So we have this. 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 So And I actually wanted to do a dark background with like light text. So let's go over to our HTML and we'll add text white and BG gray. And you notice here, like, I think the IntelliSense actually reads your config to see the values. So it's really nice. Let's try 800. I think the white is too stark. I don't know. I think we could go darker too. Ah. 50. Oh, sorry, I didn't even think about that, but I can up the code. That's probably way better. Let's go on now. Okay, sorry. This might be easier to see. So I just added text gray and BG gray 900. I think we're getting closer. We'll leave it at that for now. Okay, so let's go back to the side nav. So we have these nav items with icons. So our icons are like black right now, which is not good. So let's do, so a lot of these are icons from Tailwind, or I should say from one of their kits. It's like the hero icons. So one thing they added for SVG is you can do current color, I think. Let me actually check their docs. So you can see like this is their search. Okay, so it's fill current. So this lets you like style SVGs by kind of using the fill current color value, which is like a special value which it'll pull from the text color. So let's do fill current and text gray. I don't remember what this is going to look like, but we can do 200 for the, this might be the top. And then we can do a similar thing, but do like 50. And that'll get us the house. I kind of want to reverse that and go like bigger. Let's go to like 400. There we go. That looks like a little house. And I think we need some like margin on this icon. And I'm actually going to do that in the nav item. So our icon should be kind of quite a bit off of the actual text. So we'll do 8, which might be too much. And then also our text needs to be bold, and that might be good for now. Okay, it's taking some time. Let's go bigger. So we can do text XL, maybe. It's getting pretty close. Notice this font is also like kind of tight. So let's do tracking is the like official term for like letter spacing. Tracking is like an old design term, which is kind of cool to see them use. Let's go wider. That's too much. That's a little better. Okay, so let's give our icon. Oh, this doesn't work because we're on a span which is inline, so we actually have to do Inline block. And I don't know why this is taking so long in between saves. Oh, I think I broke my let's try a div. I might have gotten the slots wrong. Yeah, for some reason it doesn't like my the way I did my slots. Okay. I don't know if somebody knows that, but we'll just ignore that for now. Instead, we can. Well, no, that's not going to work either. Okay, we'll just ignore it for now. They'll just be really close together. So let's keep going with this and add all of our icon colors. Just replace all of these. Let's go this way. That's all the primaries and then the secondary. All right. It's not the worst thing in the world. We could have maybe used some different colors. I think so. For Twitter, the homepage is lit up, so we need to actually make that one a red color. So let's do red 600, not 6,000, and red. Sure. And then, so if we wanted to say like add a way to say like one of these is active, we can just add that. I think that's probably good. And I should say Vue is not like my forte. I've been doing mostly React these days. So if this looks weird, sorry. Let's do that. This might not even work. If active, we'll do oh, that doesn't work. Or just nothing. I don't think that works. Okay, undo all this. Okay, I know something that will work. Computed classes turn. If it's active, we want or let's call this just color. Text red 600 or nothing. And there we go. I was worried there for a second. Okay. we can say this, I think. Sorry, y'all. I'm struggling. I'm gonna have to look at the view docs. I forget. Okay, bracket. Text red. And if it's active. Okay, this should work. Oh, I have to actually tell it which one's active. There we go. Okay. Sorry, y'all. So now we have that. We need some spacing in between these. So we can say margin bottom 10. They have a lot of spacing in between their side nav. And not quite that much. Let's go with 8. That's better. Okay, so we're getting there. For now, I think that's good. We may want a we may want a color a border or a hover. So let's do that. And these are actually links, technically, which I did not add. Let's try that. What's that gonna do? Okay. So let's take, let's actually take this off. Well, we'll shorten it. We're gonna add some padding so we can make it have the Twitter kind of hover, which is like rounded, full, and it's like a lighter color. Let's go with gray. Or other way. And we'll do something similar. We need to take this, not text, either. Hover. And it's off to the side because of that issue with the slots, but you get the idea. So now we have a hover, and we also could probably stand to give some kind of transition, right? So you can do transition, and there's a lot of options. You can do none, all, colors, opacity, shadow, so there's a lot of options. We can just do colors because that's all we're caring about here. And you can actually control the duration, which is awesome. So we'll go with 200 ms. So that should look a little nicer. And I'll just leave the default kind of ease function. So there we go. We got kind of a thing going on here. And our tweet button. Okay, let's add this. I Actually, let's go to the trending section next. I gotta check the time. All right. Okay, so we have this at the top, which is too small. And we can see like Twitter's almost got like a card situation. There's some like bold. So let's try that. So we can say 3XL. And that's too large. 2? Yeah, that's better. And actually, to do the card, we'll have to go to the app where we had this container. So, or that might not work either. Let's give it a div. So we'll need a little bit of padding. Let's just start with the background. It's too light. It's like very subtle. Yeah, there we go. And each little piece will need padding. So we can say P3. All right. And that's good. So we can do a border. So border itself just gives a border width of 1 pixel. And then we can do border gray. Maybe 500. So that's going to be all the way around. We want bottom. Just erase, get the, yeah. So that looks good. Okay. Keep going. Trend list. So each one of these is going to need a, let's just do this. We'll do, I think there's a new thing for divided borders. So we can do that. So divide width. So we could do divide Y, and that should get us the borders in between. Oh wait, does that go on the, and it goes on the container, so. And I guess divide, is it color? Gray, and then I think I did 500. So now we got some borders. It's looking okay. We can go, each one of these is going to need padding. And the topic is like in a muted font. So we'll do text gray. Let's try 500. little bit lighter. 400 was right. Okay, I think actually just because this sidebar is so small, I'm gonna give the whole thing like a smaller font. So it might look a little, there we go. So the text of the actual like headline needs to be larger though. I'll try base. That's pretty good. You can see like the line height is set automatically. That's something new they just added with all the text utilities. So you can see here, I'm hovering over it. We're getting a font size of 1 rem, but we have a line height of 1.5. So you can still override that with utilities though. So we're going to say letting, which is also like the traditional design kind of term for line height. And I think tight is pretty, or no, tight. Let's try that. I think at just a little margin, maybe. Maybe just 1. We'll go 2. Sometimes I can't tell the difference. Actually, instead of setting it there, let's just set vertical on the H3 itself. See here, it is rem, so that looks about right. And I think the bottom tweet count is also supposed to be kind of muted, so we can actually just copy this. That's pretty good. Maybe we can give it some rounded corners to match Twitter. So you have a bunch of different options. It's all in like 0.125 rem increments. Let's go with large. I feel like that's pretty close. All right, so we got a sidebar. Let's get to the meat of things. So we'll start with the tweet box. Well, let's fix the font size first. So we'll say plus XL. So that looks better. They have theirs like in a box, which I guess could be nice. It's like the whole column with the border. I think I have to do border R and border L. I actually am not a huge fan of that. So instead of that, let's just leave it off. Yeah, I think this is fine. But let's actually give this some margin. So say margin bottom 6. Kind of get off of that latest tweets area. Okay, let's move on to the actual tweet box. So here we have a form that's going to submit. It's got my avatar with some width and height. So let's convert this to Tailwind stuff. So we'll do quick math, I'm not sure. I think it's maybe 14. And we want circles. That's pretty good. And we need some flex box action. So we can say flex, and you have like all of the flex options. There's so many, but I don't think we need much more than just flex. We'll give the image flex none so that it stays kind of the width and height that it would be set for it. And we'll give the div flex, is it fill? I think that's right. That's not right. Let's see. Flex 1. If you're in a bootstrap, it's flex fill is I think theirs. So that's that. And getting closer. We want our text area to match the same like width. So you can see I already took off the resize and gave it block. But we can actually give it full width and a height of something tremendous. 80, 72, something like that. And we want the background to be transparent. Let's just see what that gets us. That's too big. Okay, it's 48.1. Still too big. Let's try 32. Not settled. Okay, I think that looks good. And let's see if we type. Just see how far it goes. Yeah, okay, so that's about right. I think it's a little too close to our image, so we can give it a little bit of margin. It's ML4. Yeah, that's better. And maybe some bottom margin, and we need to shift this tweet over. So let's say MB4 and shift this over. So we could do this a couple different ways. We could say flex column, and then items end. So everything's going to be on the right, kind of pushing left, I think. Yeah, so that works. And our little rule here needs some space, which was back in the app. And that's one of the defaults. So let's do like this. Cool. So we're getting there. So if we add a tweet, let's say, hey y'all, comes in here. Well, maybe we wanted to do like a transition or something like that. So what we could do is in the app, if you ever use Vue, you can do inner from class, and And so one of the cooler things that Tailwind's done recently is given us the ability to do like transforms. So we can do transform, translate X, and say like, I don't know, 12. And so now when we tweet, it'll come in from the side. Let's try it. Yeah, so there we go. And I'm realizing that I'm running out of time. So I'm sad we didn't get to do the hearts or the retweets because they worked. But we got kind of far. I don't know, hopefully. I also didn't get to share like some of the responsive stuff. So, you know, I could show just real quick, hiding some of the columns. So if we go here, we could say, you know, none or hidden. And then if we just want to show it like on small, we could say block like this. We add it to the other column. So now, let me get off my slide. You can see once we get down to like phone, it go away. So yeah, let's go to the slides. So why would you want to use Tailwind? It kind of puts the full power of CSS into your HTML. There's no like guesswork whenever you get to the HTML and look at the classes. You know exactly what is going on there. You can see kind of, you know, you don't have to guess like what does a hero class contain. It's kind of all in front of you. It's got a like excellent design system built in, and that's huge for people that want to come in and like build something nice looking, but they don't just want to like copy paste components. They actually want to like create a design. So you have the full power to do that. You're not locked down to like whatever the nav bar specific classes are, like, you know, Bootstrap has. And the people behind it are like just excellent at like building products. They put a lot of thought into it. And like you could see, like you can do transforms and transitions from classes in HTML, which is, I don't know, that blows my mind. And there's so much more like dark mode, even like focus rings. They did a lot of work on that in the latest release. And so here's some resources. Their website, if you go to their homepage, like just be blown away by what they built all with Tailwind. And then if you go to play.tailwindcss.com, you can actually play around immediately with Tailwind. It's loaded up with the new version. So you can kind of get a better feel for like doing more responsive stuff that we didn't get to cover. And you can follow Adam Wathan on Twitter. He's amazing. I don't know how he does all that he does, but he's the guy that created it along with Steve Shoger. And he's got a great podcast and all that kind of stuff. I'm so happy to be able to share Tailwind with y'all. It's so useful. It's been so transformative for me. I've probably been using it since like 2017 or 2018. And it's just a joy on every project that it's on. I feel like sometimes I feel handicapped with that. But, you know, if you like writing normal CSS, that's cool too. I think, you know, people who want to do more experimental things, you know, Tailwind's maybe not for you, or like, you know, more intricate designs. Sometimes there's stuff that you will have to write actual, you know, CSS for. So hopefully this was a good glimpse. Thank you all. And if you have any questions, I think we have a little bit of time, so I can stop sharing.
Yes, we do have one question. Comes from Telescope Thieves. And you might have already explained this.
That's a great username.
You might have already kind of, you know, showed this in your demo. But his question is, so you write Tailwind in a different file that is then compiled to your regular CSS file, like SCSS?
I guess technically, yes, you do have to write. There's 3 like things you have to write in CSS, which is at Tailwind, and then base, and then components, and then utilities. And once you have all of those, Tailwind's gonna kind of like, if you can think of it as like importing the stuff that they build from your config in. And so like, I would say it's not like SCSS in the fact that like, you don't have to write everything in your SCSS or CSS files. Like you can write it in HTML.
Nice, great. We did have a comment that they weren't able to see the useful resources. So I can drop that in the chat so everyone has that. And again, if you have any further questions for Hunter, you can reach him at Twitter. HMillerDev is his handle. So if anything comes up, if you're watching this later, reach out to him, start a conversation. I will drop those useful resources off in the chat now. And yeah, awesome chat, Hunter.
Thanks.
Really looking forward to, we will be back in half an hour with Chris Tresniewski. He has an Angular talk. It's going to be great. So tune in soon. Thank y'all for attending.
Yeah, thank y'all.
Bye.
See you.